49ers Rush Podcast. And here's your host, John Chapman.
What is going on, faithful? Today is just a good day. And if it wasn't already a good day, I got this stud with me. Vish, how are you, man?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Dude, I don't know. I don't know if it's March Madness that's got me excited. I don't know if it's draft season. I don't know if it's the fact that Texas is still playing meaningful basketball.
Okay.
I'm feeling it, man. I'm telling you, I'm on cloud nine today for some crazy reason. So excited to talk with you. And I just got to let you know, I didn't tell Vish any of these things. I don't like to tell people what we're going to talk about because I want authentic, I want to learn and I want the honest answers. So you're going to be our GM today.
Okay.
I'm going to be throwing a lot of questions your way. But before we get to that, the title of this show is, where do the 49ers fit in the NFC? We've gone through kind of the first major round of free agency, and I want to know, honestly, power rankings, whatever, did they improve? Did they get worse in light of the competition that's at the top of the NFC, in your opinion?
I think that's a hard question because so much of improvement and whether they didn't improve is not we don't know the answer to that question. And it's not necessarily because hey, they did or didn't make these moves. It's because there's a few guys that are young guys that they're going to give the opportunity to play as they did last year and as they did in 2021. And we just don't know how good or bad those guys are yet. And I see immediately a lot of people say when they lose a starter, right? Oh, this guy is not a worthy backup or this guy is not good. And the reality of the situation is we just don't know. We just don't know. We don't have a really good answer on those type of things. I do think when you sign a player of Javon Hargrave's caliber and the fact that, he fit a need, coming into this offseason, to me, their biggest need was pretty much size in their defensive line. I thought they needed some more size and physicality, and Javon Hargrave not only brings that, but he brings, outstanding interior rush ability combined with, I continue to say it, John, the most underrated thing about Javon Hargrave is his fitness. The athlete is in incredible shape. The amount of snaps he plays for a 305-pound man is insane. He's a three-down player through and through, and he plays every single week in and week out. He's been doing it since he was in Pittsburgh. And so when you get a player of that caliber, you got to think yes, they got better. But I would say that the grade is pretty much incomplete at this point because we'll find out if they're better or worse based on, who really, really does well this upcoming season.
Yeah, one of my favorite things, I've gone through several of his game tapes already, and a couple just things I continue to find. One, a little bit slow starting, 3 games in on the first and second series, and he just, after that, it just keeps going. And he's making hustle plays. I think I was doing week 17 versus the Saints, and he's chasing down screens outside the numbers on back-to-back plays, full speed. So, you talk about, he's 30, he's older, but don't tell him that because the hustle, he wins with leverage and power and athleticism. But, man, you can't coach effort and hustle. And this guy's just got it in spades, which I'm excited about. Now, sticking with this Hargrave theme, we saw a lot of defensive ends walk. Sampson, Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis, they're gone. And if you add up their contracts, it's almost equivalent to what Hargrave got. In your opinion, okay, again, you're GM today, the 49ers made the choice Hargrave over those 3. Do you agree with that sentiment? Or do you think that maybe, is a replacement level player like a Cleveland Farrell going to make up for that other edge spot, or did they kind of focus too many resources in that one defensive tackle spot for Hargrave?
So I think it actually kind of evens out when we're talking about the contracts, right? It does even out between the Farrell and Hargrave versus having those 3 guys. Now, I do think the grade is a little bit incomplete once again because we don't know about Drake Jackson, right? If it turns out Drake Jackson who we know is a very, very high level athlete, but we're not sure how good of a football player he is yet. If it turns out that he is this excellent football player, then I'm sorry, but Samson Ebukam really, really doesn't matter because, I've been saying that to me, Cleveland Ferrell was signed to be a 2-down player. He was signed to be Paris Harrelson on 1st and 2nd down so Drake Jackson can be Alden Smith on 3rd down. And I think that's why he was signed. To be 100% honest, I don't know about Austin Bryant as much. I haven't watched him, but watching Cleveland Ferrell after the 49ers signed him, I was shocked that the guy was a top 5 pick to begin with. He's really, really stiff as an athlete. He's not extremely explosive. He doesn't really bend. Like, there's no elite traits that look like, hey, that was a top 5 guy picked as an edge rusher. Like, to me, physically, Omenihu and Arden Key, the 2 guys that played this inside-outside role, because he played 3 technique last year, quite a bit for the Raiders at times. Like, he's not on their level as a football player, as an athlete. Now, we do think he can get like 20, 30% better, right? When you add in the coaching of Chris Kasarik and you add in playing next to Bosa, Hargrave, whatever. But ultimately, to me, you're not going to get a lot out of him as a pass rusher. And to go back to the question you asked, it all hinges on Drake Jackson. If Drake Jackson is, a player that he doesn't even need to take a massive leap, John, he just has to be a player that they can have him win one-on-one sometimes. Sometimes you get pressure on the quarterback. Sometimes you can make 1 or 2 just plays. If he can be that, John, then I'm sorry. It's not to disrespect those guys, but Samson who, Charles Omenihu who, that's what it really becomes. Yeah.
And again, I mean, it seems like everybody flourishes in this system, which is awesome. The Niners, man, Kyle Shanahan and Chris Kasarik just get quarterbacks and D linemen paid. And I love it. I love seeing people get paid. The fact that Nick Mullins still has a contract, he's a number 2 out there. It's a beautiful thing. Like, I love to see people get paid. Now, sticking with this theme, okay, going back to this NFC conversation, if we just look at the NFC West, it seems like the Rams and the Cardinals are just kind of mellowing in, starting this kind of selective rebuild. I think the Cardinals are just blowing it up completely, which is probably a good call for them.
Right.
But when we look at Seattle, it seems like this is pretty much a 2-horse race in the NFC, and it's probably going to be for a couple of years. I don't know. I mean, when was the last time the NFC West was this bad, this poor? I feel like it's just very top heavy. Yeah, 2010. It's weird looking back at it because it was it used to be the best conference, or the division in the NFL. Man, now I think NFC East, AFC East, like those were 2 top heavy dominant conferences forever.
Right.
And now they've got a lot of depth. So if you, and again, this is going to be stupid, but as far as power rankings in the NFC West goes, like, do you think there's going to be any show up whatsoever from the Rams or the Cardinals to be even remotely close to 500?
So the Rams are very, very interesting, right? Because if you can tell me Kupp is coming back healthy, Stafford is going to be relatively healthy. I mean, when Stafford, I don't know what last year was, but when healthy in the last, 10 years, Matthew Stafford has been a top 10 quarterback. So if you're saying in a weak NFC, he's healthy, McVay is still a very, very great coach. Their defense will be good if they have Aaron Donald playing 17 games. That's just how sometimes things work. I don't think they would necessarily be a threat to the 49ers. We've seen the best of the Rams, and somehow the 49ers have always just owned that matchup because their physicality and their strength gives the Rams, who are a smaller and faster team, a lot of issues. But I do think the Rams could be somewhere in the playoff conversation. But again, I just asked 7 questions that need to be answered before I had to say that. Arizona, I don't know what their direction is. I mean, to me, the Arizona path the last 2 years is, hey, Kyler Murray makes a lot of plays. Now it's Kyler Murray's injured. Kyler Murray's making a lot of money, and everybody doesn't like Kyler Murray. So, I don't know what the direction of their franchise is. I don't know what direction Gannon is going to bring. They haven't drafted well under Steve Keim. I mean, Steve Keim is literally living off of 2 horrible trades by the other team when he was handed Chandler Jones and he was handed DeAndre Hopkins. Besides that, who have they drafted? Budda Baker is the only player I can think other than Kyler Murray that they've drafted as like a Pro Bowl-ish player. So again, I don't know. To me, Arizona's just a mess. To me, Arizona could be the worst team in football next year with Kyler Murray out. And then so it leaves Seattle and the 49ers. And Seattle just feels like unless they can match the talent discrepancy or bring it even closer, I just had this feeling about the NFC, John, is the 49ers are a very, very good team. The only thing that can really beat them is a great quarterback, right? Like, if you're a really good quarterback on a good team, it's tough to beat the 49ers. Like, Dallas had a good team. Dak is a good quarterback. They're not beating the 49ers with Dallas, that team and Dak, Same thing with Geno and the Seahawks. You have to be Mahomes and have a good team to beat this 49ers team, or Burrow and have a good team to beat this 49ers team. And so, because the conference is and the NFC West is the way it is, like, in a lot of ways, if you look at the 49ers schedule, you look at how defenses fall off over time, John. I'll give you a stat, right? In the last 20 years, only three teams have had top 5 defenses in terms of yards for 4 straight years. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers did it from 02 to 05, right? They won the Super Bowl in 02, and they did it from 02 to 05. Seattle did it from 12 to 16, with 3 of those years having the number 1 defense in football. And then the 49ers just did it from 19 to 23 or 22. So insane sustenance, right? But what is, history told us in the NFL, defense is usually attrition, playing this many games over time. They played 40 games in the last 2 years, aging players. Like, you would think that all these things would say that they would fall down. Now, the difference between the 49ers and Tampa Bay is that their defensive stars are still young. By 2006, Warren Sapp was old, Derek Brooks was old, and they were kind of done. And John Lynch went to Denver. And then with Seattle, they obviously paid their quarterback, so they shifted the entire identity of the team. The Niners have not paid their quarterback during this time, so they keep putting talent into this defense, right? But, history would tell us that this team would, this would be a year to pick them to fall off. I just gave you a couple examples of why their defense should fall off. But, John, look at the conference. Look at the division. Who are you going to pick if you're not going to pick the 49ers?
Yeah, especially after beating Seattle 3 times last year. I mean, and all of them were pretty handily won games. But so, like, let's stick with that theme because, we're talking 49ers defense. You've had very similar kind of progression going from Saleh to D'Amico,
right?
Which Saleh was part of that Seattle defense you just referenced. But now you're going Steve Wilks. And so it's an outside hire. It's not a little bit. It is. You're going from linebacker focused to linebacker focused to now DB focused. Are there any tendencies or things that you expect to see different with this 49ers defense with Wilks stepping in?
It's tough to say. It's tough to say because in a lot of ways, I think the defense is going to be philosophically exactly the same. A lot of first down, second down calls are going to be the exact same, right? They're going to fit the run pretty similarly. They're going to play 3 deep. They're going to play quarters. Third down, maybe he brings a little bit more pressure. I think a lot of people look at coordinators' history and say, well, this is how they're going to be. But oftentimes it's based on their personnel, right? So you can say Steve Wilks is going to bring more pressure, but if he's got Josh Norman playing corner for him by week 4, he's not going to be able to bring pressure. That's just how things work. And so I think it's going to be dependent on the personnel, but I think all things being equal, you're going to see a little bit more pressure, right? Hufanga blitzes, more nickel blitzes. That's what I would think.
That's what I want to see. Like, whenever I saw this hire, which I was hoping they were going to get Wilks, I wanted Fangio, and if not, I wanted Wilks.
Right.
And the thing I've just been screaming is just, man, I think that this hire, it helps Hufanga more than anybody, just because you're going to get that DB focused attention from somebody that's been around some of the greats at that position. And so I'm excited about that. And I do hope that they do blitz a little more. But man, if I could excel one position on this team that's not quarterback, it would be the secondary, because the D-line's so great. Linebackers are best in the NFL. If the secondary can keep playing, which we saw in the playoffs with Demo, good gosh, dude just played lights out. So if we could continue to get that type of play, the addition of Isaiah Oliver, do you think that it's going to be giving him the job week 1 for that nickel position for Isaiah Oliver? Or do you think Samuel Womack might have a shot at competing? Or do you think it's already probably...
Or Diamador Lenore.
Oh, so you think Isaiah outside or Womack outside?
When Emmanuel Mosley first got hurt, it was Diamador Lenore that played in the slot, and Womack did play outside. And now the thing with Womack is everybody looks at his height and says that he's just in nickel corner. But to me, it's not necessarily about height. Playing on the outside is first things first, can you run? And Sam Womack isn't slow. Like you can line him up on the outside, and he's not like, for example, K'Wan Williams. He couldn't play on the outside because he's going to get beat vertically every play because he can't. If you can't stop the go ball as a corner in the NFL playing outside, you have no chance.
Yeah.
It's the first thing you have to be able to do. And so he has the speed. I think Shanahan even mentioned it. And then he has that frame that's a little bit different because his arms are so long. So he's a little bit bigger human being than his height. So I don't know. Maybe they could see him playing outside. I thought Lenore, took the job because he was more aggressive and he played the run better than Womack. That became quite clear to me. Now, Lenore could play outside. The thing for me, John, is I just haven't watched Isaiah Oliver. So I don't know. Obviously, the Niners do put a decent amount on their nickelback in terms of being part of the fit at times in the run game, right? They match 11 personnel with nickel a lot. And so is he going to be able to do that? Because Jimmy Ward and K'Wan Williams did it at a very, very high level. I don't know. I know Diamador Lenore can do it because he did do it at the beginning of the year and he did it well. Maybe Isaiah Oliver is that guy. I saw a couple clips on Twitter where he had a couple of very, very nice plays shooting the gap in the run game, but that's not necessarily indicative of being good or bad at it. That's just a couple of really, really good plays. But overall, what I do like, John, that they did this offseason is they added depth. By the way, the other guy too, Miles Hartsfield, the guy they signed from Carolina, I throw his name in the conversation too. Like he played nickel in Carolina. I did watch a little bit. He's a really, really good special teamer, and I'm assuming that's why they brought him in. But if you want to talk about a player that plays the run well from nickel, is a very good slot blitzer, all of that, he fits in that mold. The one question with him is man coverage.
Yeah, and I do think we could, the 49ers ran the most zone on the back end of any team in the NFL last
Right.
few years. And so I think we probably will shift a little bit more to man. So that's something to watch. I want to say shout out to James, one of the show's producers. He's incredible. He says, "Hello, faithful, watching from the hospital. Hope everything's all right, brother. You are the best of us." And so just want to say thank you for all the help and support there. Now, let's shift to the draft, Vish. I'm excited. You're the GM of the 49ers. I want to know your draft philosophy on a couple different questions. Right off the bat, 49ers got 11 picks. First pick's number 99. Generic thinking, forget players or specific whatever. Do you want the 49ers to kind of use those 11 picks, or are you wanting them to kind of get aggressive and trade up and maybe make 8 or 9 selections, but focus on more quality type players?
I don't like when they trade up, to be honest with you. They don't do it well. They don't do it well. They
Dante
traded up
Pettis
for
says
Dante
hi.
Pettis.
I'm just saying.
They traded up for, I guess, Trey Lance is, we don't know. That could be a great trade up. It might not be. We don't know. They traded up for Brandon Ayuk. That worked well. But trading up for Dante Pettis, trading up for Trey Sermon. Didn't they trade up for CJ Beathard? They just don't trade up well. They don't do it well. For whatever reason, it just doesn't work. I would love for them to use a lot of those picks. I think they have seen that their draft philosophy by paying a lot of high level players and then accumulating compensatory picks for their, mid-tier level players and then replacing them with chief draft options that they coach up to become mid-tier players who will then ultimately get a contract and then they'll replace them again. It's a great system. It's a beautiful system. They have it working. I think they draft better in the late rounds anyway, because, when you're drafting in the late rounds, it becomes less about like Bill Parcells, for example, used to always say in the top 15 picks, you always take the prototype, right? So the guy has to be a physical prototype. He has to, if you say a corner has to be 6'1", 200 pounds, runs 4.3, in your definition, that's what an elite corner is. That's what he has to be. And so when you get to the later rounds, it's a lot less about, hey, this guy has this athletic skill set or whatever, as much as this guy has this thing that fits within my system, right? That's why you have the draft differentiations in the grades where John Harbaugh says Fred Warner wasn't even a draftable player for Baltimore, who's, an organization that's very good at drafting and has done it really well for years, whereas the 49ers looked at him as a third-round pick. It just depends on fit and what you're looking for in the positions. And so the Niners do a really, really good job at just identifying specific skill sets they need, and they coach those skill sets really, really well. So that's why they succeed with these late round players. And so, John, I would love for them to just use as many picks as possible. Just keep bringing in this young talent because they have been killing it. I mean, the last 2-3 years with after the third round draft, like they really have been killing it.
And that's why this team is able to be sustaining depth while still having all these high paid positions, right? And so you got to balance those things out. I like this comment from Oscar. And this is interesting with the 49ers. He says, best available based on need. You know, if I put any draft question out there on Twitter, whether it's a poll or whatever, the first 3 comments are BPA, best player available, which, and I get that. And I buy into that philosophy. The 49ers don't. The 49ers draft for need early, then best player available late. And I think that's a big reason why you said, like, they've had so much success later. It's because they do draft for need early, and that doesn't usually pan out. So, oh, look at this. We got Nick. What's up? The Godfather's in the house. Nick is the man. He comes to most of our road trips. I don't think he was in Chicago this year, though, so I think you missed him. He says, appreciate the super chat first off. Thank you, friend. He says, what's up, guys? Great to see you both on a show together. Looking forward to hopefully hanging out this season. Would be cool if Vish could make it out so I could meet him. Vish made it out to back-to-back Chicago years.
I did.
Are you planning on making a Niners game this year? I think we talked about this briefly last time, but I'm trying to get you on the record as many times as possible so we can hang out for 3 years in a row.
Yeah, no, so maybe. I love coming to the events. I love interacting with the Niners fans. I'm just not a big fan of watching the game in the stadium. I don't like it that much.
Gosh, man, I love it. I'm such like, whenever I go on road trips, if I see like a high school football stadium, my wife knows like the conversation for the next 5 minutes is like, I'm just like, oh, whoa, what's up? What's that press box look like? How many people you th-? Like, right. I'm a goober, man, whenever it comes to stadiums and getting people together. But yeah, we're going to try. We're going to twist his arm. We're going to try to get him out there as much as possible. Now, and here's a question that I think is interesting and adds more context to this draft philosophy. Big Papa says, if there's a player, I believe we trade up, do we have enough room for 11 spots on this roster? Here's what's crazy. The Niners keep so many of their draft picks. Last year, you drafted 9. Only one guy didn't make the roster. The Tariq, it was the corner from Penn State with 3 names.
Tariq Castro Fields.
Thank you so much. Everybody else made the roster and still on this team. There's 61 players currently signed. Maybe it's at 62 now. You got to get to 90. So I don't know. You want to keep those spots. If they draft 11, how many do you think of for those 7th rounders? How many do you think are going to actually make the initial 53 or even be put on PUP like what we did last year with Kalia Davis?
Yeah, so if they can play, they're making the 53. The vet minimum being $1 million has made teams not want vet minimum players. And so you have this new practice squad rule, right? Like, what did they do with Tevin Coleman? What did they do with Tayshaun Gibson at the beginning of the year? Teams are noticing that you just roster all the young guys at the 53 and you can get guys off the street that you'll probably come in and have them play. Like Michael Dwofor at the end of the season was playing over 2nd-round pick Drake Jackson. And he was on the practice squad, and Drake Jackson has been on the 53-man roster forever. So they've kind of nailed this philosophy down. So it really, if the guy is not on the team, that means he is not good, pretty much. Like, they don't think he has a future or any capability of playing. Because, like, even Ambry Thomas, who had probably 0 chance of seeing the field, right? Janoris Jenkins was playing over him. And Janoris Jenkins was, basically signed off the street and then immediately was playing over him. But he still kept his roster spot just because of nobody wants to pay that $1 million veteran minimum. That's why we're seeing the market dwindle for these 28, 29-year-old, 30-year-old players that are kind of like mid-level, because teams are like, why would we pay them when they'll just be available for us to come in and play if we need them for 2 games, and then we can just have the backup be our rookie guy who's way cheaper and we'll develop him.
Yeah, I like that. Another thing that I keep seeing on Twitter, we're going to have Jason Hurley, the 49ers cap guy, on the show next week. I think it's going to be Thursday, so stay tuned for that. But I keep seeing the 49ers need $9 million cap space for their draft choices, but that's not correct because you only the top 51 contracts figure into the salary cap. And so right now, anybody making less than $800,000, that's a cap exemption. They don't even count. And so with all these picks making about $1 million because they're all late round picks, like, you don't need that much money. You're talking maybe $2 million will count against the cap. The rest are going to be, they don't apply to the top 51. So I don't know. We'll take that. Now, here we go. We're getting into it.
I will say one thing, John, that I would like them to do in this draft. I would love for them to stack picks for 2024.
Ooh, they already have
2024. 9. And you get your 1st round pick back. if you can, draft, maybe trade one of those. I mean, of course, they're compensatory picks. Usually you're not necessarily going to trade your compensatory picks, but if you could maybe, accumulate a couple more picks for 2024, given, what they already have, they're going to get all their picks back because they're out of trade depth. I would be very, very happy, because one of my predictions is that this is the last year of this iteration of the 49ers. This is the last year that we're going to see the core of Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, Eric Armstead, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, these guys that have been, the 49ers' best players for the last 4 years. They've had this great run. I think this roster is going to be reshaped at some point in the next couple of years. A lot of those guys are getting old. I think there's a chance that attrition eventually catches up with a lot of those guys. So my guess, John, is that they're going to have to reset this roster in some ways. Now, I don't mean all of them are gone. I just, like 2014, I don't think that's going to happen.
It's not going to be the same.
But I do think a couple of those guys are probably closer to the end than they are to the beginning. And so I would love for them to have more picks, especially if the Trent Williams retirement is impending, because that's something that we just don't know about. And I feel like the fact that he thought about it this offseason makes me think that that could happen at any time, really. And he has nothing left to prove. He's going to walk in as a first ballot Hall of Famer tomorrow. And
maybe
so it's really
that's about
right.
It.
Right. It's really just up to him on how much he just really wants to keep playing. And so I would love for them to have, a few extra picks in case that they need to go make a big trade, right? I mean, look at the tackle market right now. Look at the deal Laramie Tunsil just got. In fact, John, with the deal Laramie Tunsil just got, I wouldn't be shocked if Trent Williams wants to fix his contract a little bit up next year.
It's going to be interesting. There's no way you can constantly keep all these guys against age and against injuries and against the cap. Like, something has to give way. I think you can keep the nucleus,
right.
But you look at the top 7 players on this team, somebody's not coming back probably, like you said. So, next year is going to be interesting. Now I'm remiss. I should have said this earlier. I apologize. Everybody go follow Vish. Good gosh, this dude's incredible. If you're not following him on Twitter, you should. He puts out great stuff. At Vishkamarin, Kumaran. I think that's right. I'm dyslexic. And then YouTube, it's at Vishkamarin 4402. It's in the description of this video or audio, whatever you're using. Go follow this guy. He is absolutely incredible. Smartest person I've ever had on the show. I don't even think it's close. And to test how intelligent this man is, I'm going to give him a trick question. This comes from HC. Would you, and how high would you be willing to take a kicker in this year's draft?
Yeah, this is a really, really hard question. Probably the hardest question I've ever gotten, because I don't think I've ever worried about a kicker in any draft, except looking up Sebastian Janikowski when I was like 6 or 7 years old. And I realized that a kicker actually went in the first round. Like, that blew my mind. Like, that did not make sense to 5-6-year-old Vish. So he had to figure out why that happened. And then of course it happened because of Al Davis. But I don't know yet, John, because I'm not exactly sure what's going on with Robbie Gould. Both the Mats have told us different information about Robbie Gould, right? One said he was gone. One said that there's a chance he's coming back. Yeah. I actually live very, very close to the area that Robbie Gould lives, funnily enough. And I do know, weirdly, that Robbie Gould has also said that he wants to he's going to come coach special teams at the local high school at some point. Now, I don't know when that is or anything. That's just what people say around here. But that just means that at some point, he's going to have to walk away. He's quite old. He's very accomplished. He's as accomplished as any non-Vinatieri, Justin Tucker, maybe the Anderson kickers up there. So, yeah, he's exceptionally accomplished.
It's funny John, you brought up Anderson. We did our 1994 49ers watch party last night, and it was against the Saints. And Morten Anderson missed a kick. It was like I was like, what? I finally watched a Morten Anderson game from back in the day, and he misses a kick. And it's just like how much we forget, I guess.
Right.
Anyway, sorry.
But either way, John, here's why I don't want them to use a pick on the kicker. When they drafted Mitch Wishnowsky, a lot of people forget this. They traded down in the 4th round and then drafted Mitch Wishnowsky. With the pick they had in the 4th round, you know who was available and still on the board?
I don't.
He just signed with the Lions for 1 year and $8 million. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was right there available at the time, the 49ers secondary had a lot of question marks. I think that was 2019, right? Going into 2019. Really, Tart was the long-term answer at safety. He had been signed. We knew that. Ward, we thought, was the answer at free safety, but he went from free safety to corner. Now they were moving him back to free safety. And then they had Richard Sherman, who was now going to be 2 years removed from an Achilles. Akello Witherspoon was a talented question mark. And Emmanuel Mosley at that point was an undrafted player recovering from injury. They didn't know about him. And they still didn't take Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And instead, they chose to trade down and take a specialist. Now, Mitch Wishnowsky has become a pretty decent punter. He's probably, top 10-ish in the NFL, probably 10 to 11, 12-ish, right? Somewhere around there.
Right.
But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson would have made them a lot better football team than Mitch Wishnowsky does. So the point for me, ultimately, John, is that as good as these specialists might be, and maybe they're really good, I frankly do not know whether they're good or bad, and I have no way of telling because, Robert Aguayo I thought was supposed to be like a really good
second-round
pick. That's
pick.
what everyone told me, and he was really, really bad very quick. And so I don't know that, but I would hate to see them pick a specialist and miss out on an all-pro player as they did with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Dude, I'm with you there, man. It's 7th round. All right, cool. But outside of that, I'm just like, nope. Just nope. I just don't. I'm sorry. I don't. It was funny. I was in Nashville for the draft when they traded to get Mitch. And I walked up to the stage and I was there as, as 4th round, whatever. And so like I'm videoing the live reaction and they're like, punter, Utah, Mitch Wishnowsky. And I was just like, I think I said a lot of cuss words. Alcohol may have been involved slightly. Diego, the man, we got a party with Diego down in Mexico City, which was awesome. He said, got my U.S. visa renewed. I'll try to make it up for another 49ers Rush road trip. Dude, that's awesome, man. Diego is a freaking very, very talented photographer. So I'm excited to party with him. That's going to be fun. Now, okay, here we go. Next question. The 49ers have 3 third-rounders, 99, 101, 102. So 3 out of 4. Let's assume they stay there. I need you to give me a percentage on the fact that 2 of those 3 picks will be an edge and an offensive tackle. So of those 3 picks, what are the chances that 2 of those picks will be an edge and an offensive tackle? Because I think it's got to be pretty close to like 100%.
Yeah, I would put it close to 100% too. The issue is that I've been bamboozled by their process in the past. I might be thinking edge, pass edge, offensive tackle or offensive lineman, and Kyle Shanahan might be thinking running back. You never know.
Running back.
You never know. Or receiver, to be honest. You never know. I think that's what the pick should be, but John, I wouldn't put it past them for it to be like a receiver. Yeah.
And the funny thing is the receiver room's packed. You're bringing every single person back. So like,
yes, but Ray McLeod will likely be gone in 2024. And Juwan Jennings, this was the last year of him being a restricted free agent. So he's probably going to walk and get a little bit of money. You saw the contract Alan Lazard got. In terms of talent, I don't know if Juwan Jennings is too far off from Alan Lazard. So there might be a little bit of money coming his way in the offseason. So you got to restock with depth around Debo and Ayuk. And of course there's Danny Gray still, but they need another young player in there for sure.
So, okay, let me ask you this. And this is coming out from Josh from 49ers Faithful Forever. He helps us with our draft work. Have you started doing some draft work? Do you have any draft crushes that you're just like, man, I really would like the Niners to get this guy if he's there?
I have, but I haven't really been doing it specific to the 49ers. Like I've just been watching the quarterbacks so far. And then I started watching the corners recently. So if you're asking me for my draft crush, maybe Bryce Young if he was 6'1",
there you go.
6'2". Yeah,
dude. Could you? Go ahead. Sorry,
yeah. I was gonna say, or if you can tell me he's 215 pounds with confidence. Yeah.
Could you believe trading up and spending that pick on a 5'10" quarterback? I just can't. Yeah. He's good. He's great. I can't buy into that. That's just me personally.
Yeah, and that's where I think the entire process of what they're doing, it's the second weirdest draft process I've ever seen. First was the 49ers when they traded up to 3. This is second. But yeah, like first off, the entire concept of getting to 1 for leverage, like I kind of get it. But draft picks don't become valuable unless there's a player attached to it. Like to me, you trade up for the player always. I've never heard of this trading up so we can get to a pick so we can decide between few players until the 49ers
Nobody
did it.
wants
And
to get
nobody
left out.
questioned it. Nobody
wants to
questioned
be
it. But
left out, man.
I've never heard of that. And then let alone like you trade up without having a specific. If you have the confidence to get to one, you have to be trading up for one player that you think is worthy of the number 1 overall pick. And it's like Bryce Young, like to me, his film, 100%, like no doubt about it. But the size is such an outlier, John. How do you take that guy with that size, with, like you said, with the number 1 overall pick? I would do it actually if I was sitting at 1. Trading up for a 5'10" quarterback, that's
crazy to me. I think it's going to be CJ Stroud. That's just me.
I think
he's
so
my
too.
quarterback one, but I know the Niners aren't in this conversation. But
yeah, I think he's probably the safest pick at that spot. But I don't know if CJ Stroud is such a talent that I would trade that much to go get him either. Like if I'm picking 1 or 2 or 3, I think he's worthy of being picked there. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks I think I've ever seen in college football. But like,
and up here, he's got everything up here. He's got everything.
Right. But again, Ohio State, a lot of clean pockets. I felt like he rarely stepped up into clean pockets. A lot of open receivers. It's like he's exceptionally good, but do I think like he was Joe Burrow when he was coming out? No. And then like Anthony Richardson is probably the most worthy talent of that draft. But am I gonna bet on 13 starts? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. I would take CJ and smile. I even like Will Levis much more than other people. I really enjoyed his tape. And again, the body, like the physical body,
it means something.
It does. Mark, he says, John, are you going to do the 90-player roster individual profiles again? You know it, man. I'm a moron, and I got told not to do it because it's too much time. But
it's got to be the biggest grind ever, man.
It's just 90 shows. It's just 90 shows, which I think today, let me look at it. We're at episode 808 today. This is episode 808.
So you'll be at 1,000.
Yeah. We're gonna do it, man. We're gonna get there. Okay, now we've talked about the Niners misses. We've talked about their hits. I want to know about your misses. All right. Who is a player the 49ers drafted that you were just like convinced was gonna be it and did not pan out? So like, who was one of the guys that you fell in love with? You thought the Niners hit a home run and it just did not go the way you thought it was going to go.
Yeah. The easiest one is Reuben Foster.
Oh
yeah,
man, those highlights.
But I also thought very highly of Javon Kinlaw. I'm still holding out hope on that one, but I thought the player was, I mean, did you, John, the Alabama game in 2019 and the Georgia game in 2019 with Javon Kinlaw?
Unbelievable.
Top 5 pick in the draft. Top five pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And he's still such a talented football player. Trey Sermon's another one. I thought Trey Sermon was a great running back. I really did. I still like the talent, and I was liking the talent of the player all the way up till when he got cut. I was still saying he's the most talented back on the team. So I have quite a few misses sprinkled in there, but yeah.
We all do, man. Jalen Hurts was my biggest. I had Jalen Hurts ranked ahead of Debo before the draft on my wide receiver
rankings.
I did. I was like all in on that cat, and sadly, we had one good preseason game.
Yeah,
that
that Cowboys game was spectacular. And then we also had, Peter King saying that he thought that was the offensive rookie of the year when he did his, usual training camp visit. That was like awesome. I do think in another world, John, Jalen Hurts could have turned out to be a superstar. I don't know if that one necessarily was just like, hey, they missed on the pick. It didn't work out for him. And that's kind of life sometimes.
Yeah, it's a mess, man. Tyler, appreciate the super chat, my friend. He says, I'm going to tell you right now as a Buckeyes fan, CJ is for real. I love it, Tyler. Thank you so much. And I believe it's CJ. And I think, in my dynasty superflex, I'm trying to get him. I'm just going to get it. Here we go. Dante Pettis and Foster. I want to see you guys put in the chat. Who is the player that the 49ers drafted you thought was going to be perfect and a stud that just didn't pan out? And if anybody says Trey Lance, I'm going to be mad at you. You can say Trey Lance. It's okay. It's totally cool. All right. So here we go. As those questions come in, and I'm excited about this. We talked about the 49ers redshirting these players. So the question goes to, which second-year player, sophomore player are you excited about? Because that didn't play a lot. TDP, you got Danny Gray, Kalia Davis, who was redshirt 100%, Nick Sakil, Womack, Jason Poe, Q Knight. Is there any of those guys that you're like, you know what? I think they're going to get a chance to kind of show what they can do this year.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Kalia Davis. My man Larry Krueger always says that, like, when he sees Kalia Davis in person, he's so blown away by the size of the human being and how athletic he is. And Larry's seen a lot of big guys in his long career covering the 49ers. So when he says that, to me, that means a lot. I personally don't know a lot about Kalia Davis. I'm excited to be able to find out more about Kalia Davis as he plays this year, but just hearing Larry talk about him that way has made me so excited
He
to
nailed
see
Brock
what
Purdy.
he could be. Right, he did nail Brock Purdy.
My favorite thing about Kalia Davis is, one, he wore a single-digit number, and he was playing linebacker. There's tape on him playing off-ball linebacker, and that is just the funniest thing to me with how big he is. He was a fun watch. And so I'm excited to see. But here's the crazy thing. I would argue the 49ers have more depth at the defensive tackle position than any other position. Like, they're stacked there. Kevin Givens, Kinlaw, Armstead, Hargrave. Like, throw in Kalia Davis. Like, that is a deep, deep room. Ty McGill they brought back.
Right.
They've
also never had a healthy the defensive tackle room has never lasted the attrition of the season.
We
Always.
lost 3 the same week last year.
I mean, last year, going into last year, think about the names we thought were in that defensive line room. Mo Hurst, Son Ridgeway. He got hurt pretty quick.
Yeah, Mo Hurst was out. Ridgeway got hurt. Armstead got hurt. Like, all 3 of those guys got hurt the same week. And Kinlaw was the only healthy one.
Right. Cristiano Tito. I'm sorry. I just saw the chat. He says another name. That was a big miss. Tank Carradine. Yeah, that's another one. I actually think in a parallel universe, Tank Carradine would have been a very, very good player. The story I've heard on Tank Carradine is Vic Fangio said there's no way he's an outside linebacker. There's no way he's a 5 technique in my defense. Trent Baalke still drafted him. Made him put on 20 pounds. They found out he couldn't play 5 technique for Vic Fangio. Drops the weight again. He actually played okay for them in 2017.
He had some decent years.
Yeah, and then he was not very good as a Raider. But yeah, that's when I missed. He was better than Bjorn Werner in college. And Bjorn Werner
was such a weird pick when they drafted him. That I was like, what? He was like 27 too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was old, but he's a workout warrior. I guarantee you, half the people are like, who? Sorry, these are fun Florida State guys back in the day. Big Papa says this question: do you think they're going to be using NASCAR packages with Hargrave and Armstead?
Oh yeah, I don't think that'll be the NASCAR package though.
Yeah, right. That's I don't even know my racing analogies, but that's got to be the giant bus package, whatever. Right. I like it when they send Kittle on the jet sweep, which they've done like 3 or 4 times. It's like a jumbo jet sweep. I like that.
Right.
Well, y'all gotta help us
NASCAR?
out. Yeah, give us a name, chat. Come in, help us out. What is a bigger NASCAR? I don't even know how to frame the question. We need a funny name to go with this whenever they do this. Oh, Taylor Mays. Oh my gosh, man. Taylor Mays, the safety from USC.
God bless Mike Singletary.
Gosh, man. Can't win with them.
Physical with an F.
Yeah, that's for real. Okay, we got a question. I love that. Oscar, maybe not. He says, what are the top 5 positional needs? Let's narrow it down to 3. Just off the top of your head, which positions do you think the Niners still need to focus resources on, whether that's cheap free agents or draft picks?
Obviously, edge, I think, would be one. Now, I think they draft a player. The edge class is off the charts in terms of the way they tested at the combine. Everyone says it's a deep class overall too. Again, I'm going off of other people's verdict when saying that. I don't know that personally, but the people who are saying it are usually very right about these types of things. It's like the Daniel Jeremiahs, the experts, the real experts.
Love me some Daniel Jeremiah,
right?
Man.
So they say it's a deep edge class, and I did see them work out at the combine, and it was freak show after freak show after freak show. At the edge position at the combine. It's actually really fun to watch. Like, the combine, by the way, John, has become one of my favorite post Super Bowl football spectacles by far. Combine, Senior Bowl, so awesome to watch. But yeah, I would say 100% they still need, another player. I feel like on the edge. I would love for them to get one of these veterans like a Justin Houston, but I don't think they'll do that. They just won't. That's just not their history. I think safety is a need, not as much as an immediate need, but at some point they got to look. Talanoa Hufanga is the only safety they have drafted in the first 5 rounds. And the other safety they drafted as a corner in Tarvarius Moore. I would love for them to have a developmental safety project or player. Maybe he plays special teams this year. Maybe he doesn't see the field, but somebody long-term that you can groom as a starter next to Hufanga. And then the third one, John, obviously you got to go to the offensive tackle position in the offensive line. Now, I do think it's a little bit tricky with that spot because who are you realistically going to find in the 3rd round that you're going to really look at and say that guy is going to contribute year 1? So I would take whoever I think is the most talented player physically at offensive tackle on the board. That's who I would like them to take. But then again, you're not going to find guys with starter caliber physical talent in the 3rd round if you're looking for a right tackle. Those
Spencer
guys go in the top
Burfords
35
do not
picks.
fall from a tree.
Right.
That was lucky. That was very lucky.
Right.
And he would have never even got that chance if Brunskill didn't get injured. Like, Shanahan's not going with the young buck over a vet unless an injury forces his hand and then they prove it.
Right. And they still split time.
And he still split time and still might with John Feliciano. Like, yeah, that's a possibility.
Right. That's true. That is true.
So, look at this. We got an answer. This is absolutely perfect, Tyler. The monster truck package. Are you kidding me? That is absolutely a perfect analogy for the NASCAR. You got the big old monsters in there. I'm still in that, Tyler. I want to say thank you for your contribution. That's going to be the thing now. The monster truck package when they bring all the big dudes in.
Right.
That's going to be fun. And another name that I said I would never mention again, talking about big busts, AJ Jenkins, man. I remember reading that Jerry Rice offered to take him to the hill and train with him, and he said no. What the hell? Like, Jerry Rice wanted to train with this kid, and he said no to Jerry. I just don't know.
Did Debo also say no?
Did he?
I thought A.J. Brown ran the hill with Jerry before the draft, but Debo didn't.
Oh, I don't know about this. Yeah, it's possible. I didn't know this. The
one thing with AJ Jenkins, now that you bring up the name, there's another name. I don't know if I necessarily thought this guy would be really good. I don't think I necessarily had an opinion that way, but I did want this guy to be really good. Was LaMichael James.
Oh, yes. Man, that was 2nd round pick. Harbaugh loved that dude.
Right.
He was one of the worst pros ever. Like, I think he
had
the
greatest
more
college
fumbles
football
than
players
first
ever,
downs.
though.
Yeah, I think he had like 4 fumbles and like 3 first downs or something crazy.
He did score in the NFC Championship game. First touchdown to make it 17-7. So
love it, man. He was so fun to watch. I just can't believe that dude did pan out.
Him and Jeremiah Masoli.
Oh, I love it, man. Big Papa said, isn't there a couple safeties in our redshirt program? Yeah, there's Taylor Hawkins is one of those guys. And Quantrez Knight, who he's played nickel. Every spot. He's played nickel, outside, and safety in camp last year. So, and he won, one of the practice squad players of the year. I'm a big Q Knight fan, man. I really, really like that kid's tape. And my thing is with secondary players, I'm a ball hawk guy. The Niners aren't really with their corners. If a corner or a safety has ball skills, I push them up my draft board every single year.
So you liked Lorenzo James when the Niners had him as an undrafted player?
I did. I fall in love with all the undrafted players, man. They're my favorites. My favorite 2 players this year were Jordan Mason, which I was huge on, and then Q Knight. Those were the 2 that I was like championing as soon as they got them, and I'm still holding out. There. Now,
I mean, those guys could be, developmental prospects. I'm not ruling out the idea. I just don't necessarily know the answer to that question today. If they don't draft a safety, then John will have her answer on how they view those guys.
Oh, there we go. And, again, where the 49ers are, you got 62 players signed currently. You've got 11 draft picks. That gets you to 73. Well, guess what, guys? You got another 17, which is basically a practice squad right there that you got to fill. So there's still a considerable amount of I hope my math was right there. I'm sitting there doing the number 3. Anyway, so that's where we're
John,
at. So
let me
Vish,
ask you this.
go ahead.
Ask you a question.
You could ask me anything
Taking
you
this
want, man. This is awesome.
Taking this same idea of the draft, right? Who is a player that like you swore the 49ers had to draft him? Like they needed to draft him. They passed on him. He turned out to be a stud. And whoever the 49ers drafted,
So easy.
You're upset
Creed
about.
freaking Humphrey. I was set on Trey Lance and Creed Humphrey. And when the 49ers were on the clock in the second round and Creed Humphrey was sitting there, it was him and Asante Samuel Jr. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is stuff dreams are made of. They trade back. The next pick is Asante Samuel Jr. And I'm like, Creed Humphrey, the left-handed center. And I hate OU. I hate OU. You're a Texas guy too. So like, I feel like you're with me there maybe a little bit. Like, I don't know. I love Creed Humphrey. And I really felt like he was going to be amazing. Came in and made all pro his rookie damn year. Like, a
lot of people thought he would be a first-round pick.
Left-handed center. People don't have imagination. Well, I've never had a left-handed center. It's freaking shotgun.
Right.
Come on, man.
Right.
Anyway.
I'm trying to. What about you, man? I'm trying to think of who's my answer for that. I don't necessarily. The biggest draft crush I've ever had was Michael Crabtree. The day the 49ers drafted Michael Crabtree, and it wasn't a draft crush because I was 10 years old at the time. Like I wasn't like sitting here, grinding Michael Crabtree film and coming up. He was the coolest player in college football that year. He was awesome. Yeah, he was. I wanted them to draft him so bad. I don't think there's.
They did, and then he held out.
Barring them winning the Super Bowl, I don't know if there would be that was one of the happiest moments I had as a Niners fan when they drafted Michael Crabtree. Because that was like, they never got, like when I wanted them to get Reggie Bush so bad. My dad told me that Reggie Bush and Alex Smith played together in high school. I'm pretending to be Alex Smith and Reggie Bush, 6-year-old me in our front yard. I'm Alex Smith who's handing it off to Reggie Bush, all of that. And they had no chance of drafting Reggie Bush. But like that was an example. And that's how Michael Crabtree was for me going into that draft. And the fact that the Raiders took Darius Hayward-Bay, I'll never forget it because we weren't able to watch the draft at the time. I threw a big fit about that. My dad was not happy. And then he checked on, his old iPhone 3GS. He's Googling the draft. And he showed me that they drafted him. Oh, my God, when they drafted Michael Crabtree.
You know who passed on Reggie Bush, who had a chance to get him? Kyle Shanahan. He was on that Houston team.
Right.
And Charlie Casserly was the GM, and he asked all of the position coaches, who should we draft, Reggie Bush or was it Mario Williams?
It was Mario
Williams. And Shanahan said Mario Williams, and he's sticking with that philosophy still today. Which I freaking love. I love our coach. I really do like our coaching staff. Even though it's changed, the turnover is bananas, but I really do like what the 49ers have going on the field, front offices, and they're being poached from everybody, but I think it's a testament to Shanahan and Lynch and kind of the culture they're creating. But Vish, this is going to bring our show to a close. But before we jump out of here, please, where can we catch more of your content? I'm pretty sure everybody already follows you. You are crushing it, man. Doing a hell of a job. Where can we catch up? What do you got coming on your schedule?
So I don't necessarily ever really plan. And then I get to like a day and I'm like, oh, I got to stream. Let me figure something out. So I'm trying to get a little bit better about that. But as you mentioned earlier in the show, you can find me on Twitter at Vishkamarin. You can follow me there. Sometimes I guess people don't like me as much on Twitter, but I share, whatever 2 cents I have sometimes there. And then on YouTube as well, you can find me at Vishkamarin. And so
what's the 4402? I got to ask. It's got to have some
Dude, I have no clue. Honestly, I didn't see it until now. And I noticed it's in my ad. I think it was just randomly added as a tag. I guess there's another Vishkamarin, so I'm 4402. I guess you can say like it's Kyle Juszczyk plus
Jason Verrett. There you go.
Plus Jason Verrett, maybe Jesse Palmer, maybe Blaine Gabbert.
Oh, not Blaine Gabbert. He's like my least favorite 49er ever.
So you want to hear something funny about Jesse Palmer? When I was little, I thought he was just going to be a really good quarterback because he had the aesthetic. He wore the eye black and like everything. Like he had the aesthetic, like the same aesthetic as like a Drew Brees or a Brady. So in my head, I was like, oh, this is how a quarterback looks. So Jesse Palmer is going to be a really good quarterback. But yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's the look, man. You got to go with it, and so certain people just have it. I remember, so I grew up in Fort Worth, and I think it was my sophomore or junior year was LT's like senior year,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just unbelievable. So we went. I hate TCU, but I wanted to go see this guy play, and he had the blacked out visor
Right.
with the purple. I mean, he just looked the part in every single way, shape, and form, and he was incredible. Probably one of the
Dude,
best college football games I ever saw was him against Ole Miss when Eli Manning was the quarterback. So Ole Miss won, but it was like 40. It was a ridiculous game. It was incredible. But anyway.
Dude, speaking of LT, I don't think there was ever a more popular jersey in elementary school than that powdered blue LaDainian Tomlinson jersey. Everybody had that powdered blue LaDainian Tomlinson jersey. Like, he was
so clean, man.
It was different. He was different. And then he had that, like you said, the face mask. Only he had that face mask with the black visor. Yeah, he was different. He was different.
He's a fun dude, man. Look at Nick right here. Thank you, man. He says, everyone throwing shade on the Lance pick. Don't pretend you weren't happy it was Mac Jones. Gosh, man. Again, talking about trading up for a 5'10 quarterback, also trading up for such a low ceiling quarterback. Like, that would have drove me crazy.
That conversation is funny though, John, because I agree with you in some sense, but I also look at this football team and say that if they had picked Mac Jones, barring injury to Mac Jones in his first 2 years, Mac Jones' stats would be exceptional. They would be very impressive. I think he probably throws for 30 touchdowns back-to-back seasons. He's probably throwing for near 4,000 yards in back-to-back seasons on this offense with these weapons. And it'll be hilarious because in that situation, I guarantee you 85% of the Niners fans who, hate Mac Jones and say he sucks. And it's not that I'm saying Mac Jones is a great quarterback. I'm just saying this situation is that fantastic. And he has the requisite skills to be able to succeed to an extent in this situation. They would be saying, hey, Mac Jones is, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Mac Jones. Yeah. They would be putting him in that conversation. We'd be saying, well, hey, he's good. He's a good quarterback, which is, what he is right now, a middling starter, but he's not that guy. So I think that entire conversation surrounding Mac Jones it's crazy. I mean, just because the stats, man, the stats would have been crazy. I don't know if they would have won a Super Bowl. Stats would have been crazy.
It's not like it's an anti-Mac thing. Like, if the 49ers would have stayed at 12 and taken Mac Jones, cool. That's awesome. It makes sense. Oh, it's again what we said about Bryce Young, trading up. There's different. You even said, like, if you're at one and you take them, that's cool. But you trade up to one to take them, that's where right. I can't trace the logic there, right? But you are correct. I mean, he's put up decent numbers. I think that he's an average level quarterback. I mean, I wouldn't put him ahead of I wouldn't put him in the top 12, but that kind of like 13 to 18 range.
You can throw him wherever you want in there. Like, he knows how to play. He plays like an 8-year veteran, like with limited physical skills that's just been around the league a lot. Yeah. But he's good. He's good. I'm not ready to say they made the wrong pick or anything from that standpoint, but I'm just saying that I do think that if they had picked Mac Jones, it would have looked like the right pick. That's all I'm saying statistically. And I think in a lot of ways it could still look like the right pick with Trey Lance. He just hasn't gotten to play.
That's what it is. We're going to get to see it not soon enough. We still got some time till the season starts. But Fish, I just want to say thank you for your time, what you do for the community, just kind of who you are. You're like one of the few, like not one of the few people, but you are just a person that you are who you are, and the community loves that. So I just want to say thank you, man, for your time. I'm going to beg to get on your show in the next week or so. I want this to be a thing where, like, every other week you're on my show or I'm on your show, and we just keep this rolling.
Dude, we got to do it. Somehow we were talking about doing that when we did the last show.
We're not planners, neither one of us.
Right. You text me about coming on this week, and I'm like, oh, crap. I never even, I missed the opportunity to get John on. And then I was thinking, should I tell John that maybe let's do it on my, no, I'll go on with John right now. And then I'll kind of be like, hey, John, when are you going to come on with me? But
next week, man. Next week.
Done.
All right. I love it. Y'all heard him. So, Fish, thank you so much. And until next time. Oh, sorry. Any closing thoughts, Fish, before I didn't even give you a chance to say your goodbyes or anything before we jump out of here?
No, this was awesome. I think what I told you last time after we did it, and that was the second time I think we streamed, and it might have been a year and a half prior to the first time we streamed. And I remember telling you, it was natural. Our conversation was so free flowing and easy. And I feel the same way today. So hats off to everything you do, man. And I love chopping it up with you.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Vish. Go support this man in the description here. Until next time, stay strong, faithful.